Welcome. I'm Patrick Bannon with the Bellevue Downtown Association. Thank you for joining us for this first Downtown Talks. In this new normal, we're excited to host brief conversations with local business and community leaders and offer one more vital connection to what matters most now and what will matter to Downtown Bellevue's future. Today we're talking with Colleen Daly, who is leading the public health and COVID-19 response at Microsoft. Dr. Daly will share an inside look at strategies meant to support the health and well-being of their employees, both here in Bellevue and around the globe. Downtown Talks is generously supported by 4 key partners. They are Heritage Bank, Kaiser Permanente, Puget Sound Energy, and Vulcan Real Estate. We appreciate your support. Thank you. So our guest today is an all-out expert on occupational health and workplace wellness. She holds a PhD and a master's in public health with expertise in occupational safety, epidemiology, health services research, and health behavior. Throughout her time at Microsoft, she's focused on the well-being of its workforce, from ensuring employees remain safe while in the office to managing stress while working remotely. Colleen is deeply involved in Microsoft's strategies for today and its plans for the future. Also of note, she grew up in Bellevue and attended both Bellevue and Sammamish high schools. Welcome, Colleen. We're excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So jumping into the questions, you've been with Microsoft over a decade, and in that time, and let's exclude the last 6 or 7 months for the moment, what have been the most profound changes you've seen in the way Microsoft employees are working? We know technology's been a game changer, but what about workplace wellness and employee satisfaction? And we're all hungry, no matter what size of business we're in, for ingredients to help ourselves and our talent stay engaged and healthy. So how has the world at work changed for the better or worse over the last decade?
That's a great question. And it's really been an interesting journey over the last 13 years of being at Microsoft. I think one of the most interesting things to observe is to have been a part of the cultural transformation that's been happening at Microsoft. It's been great to see how our culture has evolved since Satya has become CEO. I've really seen a shift in how employees are interacting within the workplace and really thinking about how we can be a learning culture with a growth mindset. I think this has really created a culture that puts employees at ease and really allows them to be creative and innovative, knowing that sometimes they might not take the right approach and they need to start over or try a different way. I think this has really opened up the door for employee well-being because it enables employees to think creatively with a less pressure and less stress. And I think it's really created a culture transformation at Microsoft, which has really shifted the way Microsoft is seen both internally and externally.
So you mentioned culture transformation as a theme over the last decade, not including COVID. So including COVID in the last 6 to 7 months, the moment the outbreak began and it got real for us in February and early March, what were some of the key actions in Microsoft's response?
Yeah, I mean, in January is when Microsoft first started responding to COVID. We're a global company, and by the time COVID had hit the Puget Sound area in late February, Microsoft have already activated 60 countries with a crisis management response to COVID. So we had already deeply engaged on the topic of COVID. I wanted to show a video that kind of really summarizes really well Microsoft's response and what we're doing for employee well-being in the time of COVID.
Great, we have that video. Let's roll video now.
These are unprecedented times. On behalf of the SLT, we want to thank you for how you've adjusted to working in new ways and for supporting each other. As the situation improves and government restrictions begin to lift, we will not be among the first companies to return to the worksite. Slowly returning to the worksite will allow us to support our essential workers, our communities, and our most vulnerable populations. We're counting on you to do what is right for you and your family, for your coworkers, and for Microsoft too. We wanted to give you an idea of what you should expect to experience as we slowly return to campuses around the world. Things will look different in many ways according to local guidelines. But our core approach and principles of workplace safety and putting your health and well-being first will always be the same. And while crews do their part to keep us safe, we need you to do your part too. Returning to campus will require everyone to contribute to a culture of health, safety, and respect for the needs of all. We're carefully preparing for a safe campus experience, where personal accountability is paramount, and where we truly live our values. As you adjust, keep a growth mindset. Understand that accessibility impacts people in different ways. Take time to reflect and respect the choices of others. These small actions of personal responsibility can have a big impact. We are learning and growing together, finding new ways of caring. And connecting with each other. At the end of the day, innovation does not come from a place. It comes from people. You are what is special about this community. And for all that you do, we thank you.
I love seeing that video every time I watch it. It makes me so proud to work at Microsoft. And I'm so proud of all of our employees during this difficult time, especially our essential workers. They are doing a great job every day. I think one of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit more about was the key principles for our work and what the work we're doing to support COVID. We're adopting a hybrid model that supports both working from home and the workplace. And we put health and safety first, specifically the physical, mental, and emotional well-being is top priority. And we're here to support the needs of the employees, whether that be in the office or in the work or at home. And we want to serve our customers and can continue critical business operations. And most importantly, we want to meet or exceed regulations from public health authorities. One of the key things for our response to COVID has been the role of benefits. Microsoft has put in place a lot of benefits to help support our employees' well-being, everything from base pay protection to physical wellness to some unique childcare options during COVID. For example, we've introduced the pandemic leave that allows employees to take at once or intermittent 12 weeks of leave to help care for their children that might be out of school. And employees can do that all the way up into June to 2021 of this year. And we've had a large focus on mental health. Microsoft was really fortunate because we had put in global wellness programs for all of our employees throughout the prior to the pandemic that we were able to leverage during the pandemic, and really focusing on the mental health benefits that all of our employees globally have. I think one thing that we've learned, though, through our response is we've learned a lot of lessons. So the lessons that we've learned so far is that it's really important to leverage our existing crisis management principles and stick to them. We want to move fast, but make sure that we also bring others along with us in the journey. Most importantly, with our response, we wanted to stay grounded in science. This is something that's been really challenging through the COVID pandemic. There's a lot of media publications, misinformation, and it's challenging to understand what is the best advice to give our employees. But when we stay grounded in the science, staying close to peer-reviewed journals, really sifting through it, translating that science and understanding what's best for Microsoft, it's really helped us stay grounded in the science and make sure that we're giving our employees the right advice. We've also communicated frequently and transparently with our employees throughout the pandemic. And most importantly, we've led with empathy and a growth mindset, knowing that we're constantly having to shift based on what our employees need. So, Patrick, that's a little bit about what we've done with our COVID response.
Good. And so specifically, you mentioned it as part of the global wellness programs for employees, but stress. I want to talk about stress because this is an incredibly stressful time, not just the pandemic, but civil unrest, questions about how our remote learning is going to work with kids, the election coming up, systemic changes that are being called for across the country. Those are just a few issues weighing on us. So specifically around stress and mental health and the company's response in supporting employees, how has the company adapted, and specifically how is the company supporting the mental health needs of its employees?
Yeah, it's also another great question and so critical during today's times. Microsoft's been really fortunate, as I mentioned just a little bit ago. We put in a strong foundational well-being program that all of our employees globally can take advantage of. It focuses on the physical, mental, and financial well-being of our employees. So we kind of have branded it as care for your body, nurture your mind, and invest in your future. This is something that all of our employees globally can take advantage of. From a mental health standpoint, we wanted to ensure all of our employees globally have the same access to mental health resources. So globally, all of our employees have available 12 counseling sessions that are free through our employee assistance program. This has been a crucial foundation for the mental health support. We spend a lot of time marketing mental health within our organization and encouraging employees to dialogue around mental health. This has played a key role in helping employees feel open to talk about the mental health concerns and issues that they're experiencing. We talk a lot about it's okay to ask if you're okay. Encouraging other employees to reach out to others during this critical time, touch base with them, and really say, are you okay? Because that is an important thing to help others feel connected. Because right now, a lot of us are feeling isolated. And it may feel that we're connected because we're on work 24/7, or our days are extended because we're online with lots of virtual meetings. But it doesn't mean that we're connected in a really real way. So it's important outside of the meetings to really reach out to our fellow employees and say, how are you doing? Are you okay? Do you need anything that I can help with? And I think we've also gone really deep on this conversation, not being afraid to talk about the challenging things. Last month for Suicide Awareness Day, we reached out to employees, sent an email with all suicide prevention resources, and this went to all of our employees globally, taking a topic that's really challenging to talk about and discuss the topic internally. And so our tagline for that promotion was break the silence, encouraging people to talk about their feelings, asking others if they're okay. All of this combined has really helped provide mental health support for our employees, but then also recognizing that there's a lot that we still need to do with respect to mental health. So we're continually trying to understand what can we do for our employees and strengthen the support that we're providing for mental health, because there's so much that's going on right now and all the issues that we're facing are very deep.
Yeah, one of just a true constant has been the change we're all facing on a personal level throughout the pandemic. And we can look in our community and just outside these doors in Bellevue, and we know we're on pace for a significant amount of change as the community grows, as we recover from the pandemic. I think all of our workplaces are going to continue to experience change in the next few months. So even looking further than 10 months out, based on the research, the evidence that you're seeing about workplace wellness, what's your bold prediction from 10 years from now for workplace wellness? What might surprise us that's coming down the pike as we gear our workplaces to be healthy places to live and work?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what the workplace looks like after COVID. I think that we've learned a lot during the time of COVID about some things that have worked really well. Individuals have embraced technology and understood that there's different ways that people work. So I think in the future, there's going to be a greater appreciation and flexibility to accept that there's different ways that people work, which I think will enable um, a greater acceptance of diversity within the workplace and inclusion. I think that to some extent we'll be able to support individuals with disabilities and mental health conditions more within our workplace because we're going to accept different ways of working. It will be interesting to see after COVID what's the trend. Do we go back to how we worked before, mainly in the office, or do we see individuals having a mixture of some at home and some in the office? I think one thing that we'll see specifically with well-being and mental health, and a trend that I've seen over the last 5 years, is an increased openness that people have around mental health. And I think the more that we can encourage that openness and dialogue and not being afraid to talk about hard topics with mental health or well-being, the more that we'll make progress at addressing these really challenging issues in our society. So I do anticipate and hopeful that we can continue to break the silence around these challenging topics and have really hard conversations around mental health and the things that people are experiencing, which are really challenging, because after the pandemic, there's going to be a period of recovery that each of us are going to have with respect to mental health. And it's not going to be that COVID's going to end and all of us are going to go back to normal. There's going to be a time that we're all going to have to adjust, recover, and understand what is the new normal for each of us.
Yeah, so it seems as if we're in a smaller organization, it seems as if an individual approach might be easier. But for Microsoft, thinking globally, how do you scale an more individual approach to workplace well-being, and the various layers that come with that? How do you make that magic happen?
Yeah. So we rely heavily on what we call well-being champions. We rely heavily on the individuals that are in country that work in smaller groups. Although Microsoft is a very large company, we're made of very much of a smaller, more intimate teams. And so by each country, we have what we're calling Be Well champions, and they help support at a smaller scale, at a closer level, similar what you might see in a smaller business or a smaller workforce. So we kind of break up our larger company into smaller pods that help support each other and provide that support.
Great. So before we sign off, in a few sentences, what words of wisdom, Colleen, would you share with our audience? And our audience really is the spectrum of the business community and organizations working here in Bellevue and throughout the greater East Side and Seattle region. So words of wisdom for those who have influence over workplace policies and benefits, where can they affect the most positive change?
Yeah, I think one word of wisdom I have is everyone is doing an amazing job through this pandemic. We all might feel like we're not doing enough or providing enough support for our employees, but everybody is doing an amazing job. And I see this every day in our community, and we're all working so hard. And just to continue to understand the great work that you're doing and continually emphasizing that and reinforcing it, because it goes a long way in showing empathy to those that are in your workforce, knowing that you care every day about their well-being.
Well, Colleen, thank you for all you do and for talking with us today. A special thanks to BDA member Microsoft and what they do in terms of regional leadership, local leadership, and caring for their employees. We're lucky to have you all helping move this community forward. I want to thank our audience for joining us for this first Downtown Talks. We plan to have our next Downtown Talks on November 19th, where we will share an update on the state of retail here in Bellevue with the Bellevue Collection. Thanks again to Colleen Daly, and Bellevue, enjoy the rest of your day.